Growing up in a home that loved the New York Yankees, it was no surprise that Scott Kindberg would choose a career that involved the sporting world. Graduating from Jamestown High School, Jamestown Community College, and Point Park College in Pittsburgh School of Journalism, Scott began his career in sports as the assistant general manager for the Jamestown Expos in 1992 under 2014 Hall of Fame inductee Dan Lanetta. In 1983, he began his career with the Post-Journal as a sports reporter and was named assistant sports editor in 1987 and sports editor in 2014 upon the early retirement of Jim Riggs. Since 1945, incredibly, the Post-Journal has had only 3 sports editors: Frank Hyde, Jim Riggs, and now Scott Kindberg. He was also the beat reporter for the Buffalo Bills during their 4 Super Bowl runs in the 90s. Scott has traveled many miles covering local athletes, reporting on their many successes. The unique thing about Scott is that he not only reports on the actual sporting event itself, but he also makes personal connections with the athletes and their families, which in turn makes his reporting a very in-depth and personal experience for all of us as readers. In addition to his thousands of newspaper articles, Scott has authored 10 books, and the latest one being the history of baseball in Jamestown up to the story of the Tarp Skunks currently. He has received 14 New York State Associated Press Awards for excellence in journalism. Ladies and gentlemen, proud to honor and introduce Scott Kindberg as a 2023 inductee to the Chicago Sports Hall of Fame.
I stand here as the son of a policeman and a nurse, the husband of a nurse, and the father of 3, a high school principal, an IT genius, and a manager at a local company. Me, I'm just a guy who writes about sports. But somehow I find myself at this podium tonight. I'm so humbled. You see, when I was in high school, I had a teacher who predicted that I wouldn't make it in this profession. So sharing this special night with my fellow inductees is a bit overwhelming. And of course, sentimental. More than 30 years ago, I was covering a Section 6 baseball playoff game at what is now known as Dietrich Park. Accompanied by my son, Matthew, we climbed the stairs to the roof and found a room in the press box. Upon opening the window, Matthew looked out at the immaculate field, the blue sky, and the campus of Jamestown Community College beyond the outfield fence and said, "Dad, the view from up here is simply breathtaking." Matthew was 7 years old. Man, has time flown by since then. I will celebrate my 40th year in the business in March, and it's been quite a ride. A joy, really. But it never would have turned out that way if I didn't receive support from so many. First, thank you to the Chautauqua Sports Hall of Fame, led by President Randy Anderson, for this tremendous honor. And a special thanks to my dear friend Cameron Hurst for nominating me, and to those who wrote letters on my behalf. Secondly, thank you to my late parents, Kinky and Carol Kindberg. Ernie Johnson, the TNT broadcaster, once said, "My father gave me the greatest gift. He believed in me." Mom and Dad, thank you for believing in me too. I wish you were here tonight. You were simply the best in all the important ways. Thank you to my wife, Vicki. She has supported me despite the crazy and unpredictable hours for more than 30 years. Singer-songwriter David Bowie was once asked by a journalist what he thought was his greatest accomplishment. Bowie's response was, "Marrying my wife." When the journalist asked, "But as a musician," Bowie said, "Nothing else matters." He was right. Thank you, honey. You're a Hall of Fame partner. Thank you to my sons, Matthew, Eric, and Jeremy, my brother Gary, my sister Lisa, my grandchildren, and an extended family of in-laws, aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews, and friends. There's a good share of them here tonight. Thank you, who have encouraged me every step of the way. I love you guys. Special shout out to Tom Ames. He and I have traveled all over the state as we've covered high school tournaments, and Tom has handled all the logistics. That includes driving to every event, making every hotel reservation, and most importantly, finding the best restaurant. Yeah, thanks, Tom. And finally, a big thank you to my Post-Journal family, including my sports editor predecessors, Frank Hyde and Jim Riggs, whose examples are something I strive to emulate every day. My current bosses, Mike Bird, Jack DiAgostino, and John Whitaker, and my sports department staff of Matt Spielman and Christian Storms. I'm standing here because of you and all those I've worked with since walking into the newsroom for the first time in March of 1983. Thank you doesn't seem like nearly enough, but I want you to know how much I appreciate you as professional colleagues and personal friends. In closing, I want to share one last chapter of my story. In 1989, at 28 years old, I was facing a crossroads in both my personal and professional life. The question was this: do I stay in Jamestown or do I pursue career opportunities elsewhere? I chose to stay at home because I wanted to be a full-time dad, as well as to show my love and appreciation to my parents for all they had done for me when I needed them the most. While both my folks passed away years ago, I'm fortunate because their influence is never far away. In fact, in our living room is a framed tract that was cross-stitched by my mom more than 2 decades ago. It reads as follows: "You got it from your father. It was all he had to give. So it's yours to use and cherish for as long as you may live. If you lose the watch he gave you, it can always be replaced. But a black mark on your name, son, can never be erased. It was clear the day you took it, and a worthy name to bear. When you got it from your father, there was no dishonor there. So make sure you guard it wisely. After all is said and done, you'll be glad the name was spotless when you give it to your son." Matthew, you were right. My view for the last 40 years has been breathtaking indeed, thanks to all those who have been so generous in sharing their stories with me. So as I accept this incredible honor, along with my fellow inductees, just know that it's truly been a privilege to call Jamestown home for my entire life. And now I can call the Chautauqua Sports Hall of Fame too. Thank you.